All right, so here is the very last one. So this part we're talking about reference angles. And when we're talking about the reference angle is what angle are we referring to in the first quadrant, the very first quadrant. So with this part, we can kind of know where it is around the quadrant 1, 2, and 3. But it's easier to remember what's inside the first quadrant and see which angles match up with that first quadrant angle, and then we would know what's going on with it. Because later on, we're going to have to deal with all four quadrants, and we're going to have angles like 270, or we'll have 120, or uh, let's see, 335. And you're going to have to figure out where that is and what does that angle have to do. But if you can figure out like where it looks like in the first quadrant, that make it a little bit easier so you'll know what the answer should be. So with our reference angles, if the angle A is inside the first quadrant already, then you're good. You just go by what's there. If angle A is inside the quadrant 2, you'll do 180 minus that angle, and it should tell you what number it is in the first quadrant, and then you can be able to deal with that from there. Same thing for quadrant 3, you would do the angle minus 180, and that'll take you back to quadrant 1, and then 360 minus that angle, and that'll take you back to quadrant 1 also. And again, if you know what is in quadrant 1 and how those things work, they pretty much just go and mirror in every single quadrant, just might change the sign here or there. And that's going to be very important again when it comes to our trig stuff that we're going to do next. So here's our last example, example 5. And here we're going to find the measure of the reference angle for each angle. And again, the reference angle is inside the first quadrant. So here we have those four things that we can choose from. So if we look at A, and it says it's 120 degrees. Now 120, is that in quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4? So is that between 0 and 90 for quadrant 1, between 90 and 180 for quadrant 2, between 180 and 270 for quadrant 3, or 270 to 360 in quadrant 4? And you should say that's quadrant 2, because it's between 90 and 180. Whoop, sorry. So it's between those two. Okay, so if it's between 90 and 180, that means we have to go to B, which says 180 degrees minus whatever the angle is. And our angle here is 120. So we'll do 180 minus 120. And that's going to give us 60 degrees is our reference angle. So that's quadrant 1. So the reference angle is 60 degrees. Okay. Now the other part that's going to be important is B. If you have a negative angle, you have to kind of get it back to a positive angle and then get it into the actual quadrant 1. So for this part, we're going to have to change it from a negative angle to a positive angle. And hopefully, do you remember how to do that? Hopefully you guys do remember that. Anybody remember? Anybody? You add 360 to it. So negative 135 plus 360, and that would give you a positive angle because 360 is higher than 135, so it'll give you a positive answer. So that would give you an answer of 225. Now, with 225, what quadrant is that in? Right, quadrant. If I could spell things right, it'd be wonderful. Quadrant. Quadrant 3, because it's between which two numbers? 180 degrees and 270. Perfecto. Okay, so between those two angles, so that means if it's in quadrant 3, that means we have to go with C. So with this part, with these 4 rules, you are going to have to remember them. So it means you're going to have to study them, you're going to have to know them, because if you don't know them, when it comes time for a test or a quiz or anything of that sort, and I say, give me the reference angle, and you don't know which one to use, you'll be kind of messed up. So don't be messed up. So we're going to do 225 minus 180, because that's for C, because it's in the third quadrant. And if we were to subtract that, we would get an answer of 45 degrees. So our reference angle, and I want you to write out this part here, reference angle is 45 degrees. And again, I do want you to write that out. I want you to be specific and let me know exactly what that is. And you know what? That's the end of section 5.1. So it's not bad. We can do this. We got this. We got this. All right, so that's it.